Hey everybody, I'm going to do probably these two videos just to kind of show you how you can draw that box we're going to make in wood. Again, it doesn't have to be a box like the one that I have in class or like the one I'm going to draw in this video, but just to give you an idea, you're going to do something along the lines of something that has four sides, fits together with joints on the corners. Where you go from there is up to you, and I could show you some examples in class of what some other people are going to do. But I want to show you how to use SketchUp, a few things that weren't on the other video. I want to show you how I would begin to approach drawing the project if I were doing it. So obviously I'm logged into Google on my school account. It probably doesn't really matter as long as you have a Gmail account, whether it's your personal account, school account, doesn't matter. So we're going to create new. And this time I'm going to choose simple template, feet and inches. The video we watched in class, he chose millimeters. I don't even think that was America. Most of the world uses millimeters. We use feet and inches, and those are the rulers we have, and that's the system we use. So this drawing for your actual project should be in feet and inches. So I'm going to select simple template, feet and inches. I don't want to save this. All right, so here's my new project. So the first thing you could do, you could delete this icon of the person standing here. It's just for your like reference. You're in feet and inches. Keep that in mind, and you'll see when I start typing measurements. One of the things I would suggest you do is try and figure out about how big your project is going to be. Like in other words, how big is the footprint going to be? If you looked at it standing over it from top down, how big would it be? So let's say I was going to make a box like the one I have in class, and let's say it was 10 inches by 16 inches, right? So 10 inches by 1 foot and 4 inches, or 16 inches. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a square tool. I'm going to kind of draw like the footprint of it. And it's not to be part of the actual drawing. It just actually will give you kind of like an outline to go by, or like an outline of the overall dimension that you can draw other things off of. So on the sidebar here, I'll click the rectangle tool. I'll just go to the origin point. That's the 0, 0, 0 coordinate where the three axes intersect each other. So I'll draw this on the XZ axis, right? Axis. I'm sorry, the XZ plane is what I should really call it, right? It's made up of the x-axis and the z-axis. So if you draw on this plane, this is called the XZ plane. So I have a rectangle. I'm going to make it 10 inches by 16 inches. And if you look at the bottom right down here, look what happens when I move this around. The first measurement, which isn't moving much, so from the origin out the red line out the z-axis, that's your first measurement. You see, like in the bottom right dimensions, I am at 4 feet and 7 and 9 inches and 0 width, right? So the first one is the length, and then the second measurement is the width. So if I move out, you'll see the second measurement also fills in. So you could sit here and just kind of play with this and put it where you want, but you really need to. The right way to do it is to go by numbers. Have an idea of how big you want this to be. So I'm going to make it 16 inches. So I'll type in 16 inches, and the inches is the quotation mark. Has to be the quotation mark. You can't use two apostrophes. SketchUp won't take it. Then comma. So my length is 16. My width I'm going to make 10. I'm just picking these numbers based on like what a lot of these boxes turn out to be. I want you guys to do your own thing. I mean, it's got to be, we should all be in similar sizes, but again, if you have an idea of something you want to do, make what you want. It can't be something too big, but just don't do exactly what I'm doing. Try and come up with your own thing. Okay, so here's my footprint. It's 16 inches by 10 inches. You can see it looks pretty small. So from here on, I'll zoom in. I'm using the thumb wheel on my mouse to zoom. If I move the mouse somewhere and hit the thumb wheel, it'll zoom in based on that point. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the space bar. And space bar brings me to the selection tool. You can also just click on the selection tool right here on the toolbar. But if you hit the space bar, it's a shortcut key. What I want to do is I want to delete the surface of this. I'm going to just click on it. I'm going to hit the delete button on my keyboard. I just want the outline. That's all. I'm just keeping this here to act as a just a kind of a guide for to draw off of. So what I want to do in this video is I want to draw one of the sides. So I'm just going to move around a little bit, orbit. To do this, I'm pressing down on the scroll wheel on the mouse. It's also a button. And the other thing you should get, so get in the habit of zooming in and out with the scroll wheel, just turning the wheel. Get in the habit of pressing the scroll wheel and being able to kind of change your view. And then also get in the habit of pressing the scroll wheel while you press the shift key. If you press the shift key while you press the scroll wheel, you see it just turned into a hand. I'm holding shift down right now and the scroll wheel button. If I let shift go, it just becomes like the orbiting tool. If I press the shift button, it becomes a hand. I can move then I can move my entire screen. So a combination of the zoom, the orbit by pressing the scroll wheel, the move. It's not the same thing as moving a shape. It's just kind of moving the screen by holding the shift and the scroll wheel. Those are the things that really let you kind of move around the drawing. Okay, so I want to make a side. I'm going to use a rectangle tool. I'm going to click on the endpoint here. Now we're dealing with 3/4 typically, right? The figure wood we have is 3/4 of an inch thick. Now most of your boxes are going to be used with that, unless for some reason you want to use 1/2 inch. For my drawing, I'm going to use a 3/4. So I'm going to draw. I started at the one point, right, where the green dot is, and I came to the other side. And if you look at my measurements in the dimensions window on the bottom right, I am 1 foot 4 inches. I had originally typed in 16 inches, but you can see it depicts it in feet and inches. 16 inches is 1 foot and 4 inches, right? 12 inches per foot plus the 4 inches is 16 inches. Um, so my length is automatically going to be right just because I'm dragging it right to the other end of the rectangle. However, I want to make sure that I have the correct thickness of wood. And for that, I'm going to make my second dimension 0.75. So if you guys look at the dimensions, 1 foot 4 inches, I want to keep that. I don't want that to change. So I don't want to retype it either because it's more work. I only want to change the second dimension. So the trick here is if I want to keep the first dimension, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the comma and watch what happens in dimensions. So you can see my dimensions now starts out with a comma. What that means is keep the first dimension. And then I could type in what the other dimension should be, 0.75 inches, right, for 3/4 of an inch. I could have also typed in 3/4 inches. That would have been fine too. I think of 3/4 is 0.75, same thing. So I could do 0.75, or I could do like this. I could just do comma 3/4 inches, same exact thing. So now you see what it did was it drew my I drew this slim 2D rectangle. I'm going to hit the space bar. Get in the habit of hitting the space bar after you use one of the drawing tools, because the space bar always brings you back to the selection tool, which is this arrow. Now, I want to delete the surface on this, in this big box. This is one thing I haven't figured out with the online version. I don't know why it put a surface back on there. But anyway, I want to delete it. So I'm going to click on the surface and delete it. I only want the surface of the rectangle I just drew. And again, what I did was I clicked on it and I hit the delete key on the keyboard. So now what I want to do is I want to pull this up. I want to use the push pull tool, which is this over here. Don't forget, you gotta hold the control key when you use this, otherwise it's going to be hollow. So I'm going to hold control. I'm going to pull this up. I'm just going to get it going in the right direction. I'm picking just a random number. I'm going to say 4 inches. Let's pull this up 4 inches. So I started the pull. I don't even know how much I did it. All right, I could see dimensions. I did it 1.5 inches. But I just pulled it in the direction I want it going. Now I'm just going to type in how high I want it to go, or how far I want it to actually pull. So I'm going to type in 4 quotation marks, right, which is 4 inches. You can see that in the distance, and you can see dimensions actually just changed the distance. So I typed in 4 inches. I'm going to hit enter. And there's my 4-inch tall side. So we only have to do this once, because you're going to see. Whoops, that was an accident. We're going to once we finish this side, we're going to copy it for the other side. So what I really want to do in this video is just show you how to do the one side. We're going to put joints in it. So I'm going to move it around here. I'm just going to use my shift key and my scroll wheel on the mouse and push them. I want to line up a view here for my joints. So the joints are we're going to take a notch out of each end of the wood. The notch has to be 3/4 of an inch deep, because it's a 3/4 inch thick piece of wood that's got to fit into it. So we want a flush fit. So we're gonna take a 3/4 inch notch. So we're gonna draw a rectangle to do this. I'm gonna click on the rectangle tool. I'm gonna click this top point over here. Make sure it's on the right plane. See, sometimes if you go this way, now the rectangle is on the end of the wood. I don't want it there. I want it on top of the wood. So your drawing plane can change just based on where you're moving your mouse. So that's why you really need to always draw with a mouse, and you need to be mindful of what plane you're on. Okay, so I want to go 3/4 of an inch deep. I want to go 3/4 of an inch deep, and I'll go like a 1/4 of an inch thick maybe. So if you look at the dimensions, the first one is going to be um, how far from the end you go. So that's going to be my 3/4. So we get to 3/4 inches, comma. And let's say we want to cut at least a 1/4 inch deep slot for this joint. So the second dimension will be 1/4. There is the rectangle that will become the joint. Okay, so it was 3/4 of an inch deep from the end to here. That's 3/4, and that means the piece of wood that's going to intersect this will fit in there flush. And we're going to cut a 1/4 of an inch out of it. This is a good kind of it's a good size joint. You could go a little more into it, but then you're really going to start weakening what's left of the side piece. So how do we cut this joint out? So we drew a two-dimensional rectangle. What we're going to do is we're going to pull it out. So line up a view for yourself, kind of where you can still see the two-dimensional drawing, and you can also see where you want to stop, right? I want to stop on this line. If I pull it, I'm going to grab the push-pull tool. You don't have to hold control when you do this. We're going to cut this right out by clicking on the 2D rectangle I just drew, pulling it down, and at some point I'm going to come off, and I'm going to go right to the line. See what happened when I went right to the edge of that wood? It automatically knew to just get rid of it. There's my joint, and now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I know this is tedious, guys. I know it's kind of tough to like just listen to a long. Let me get my selection tool back. I know it's tough listening to a long video and trying to keep focused on it, but I want to show you how to do this. You need to know how to do this. All right, I'm getting messed up here with my orbit. Okay, so I'm going to draw the exact same two-dimensional rectangle. It was 3/4 of an inch this way and a 1/4 inch that way, right? So again, my first dimension, I just by randomly dragged it out. It's 9/16, right? So I need to make that 3/4. I'm going to type in 3/4 of an inch, comma, and it's going to be 1/4 of an inch into the wood, right? Deep. Okay, so there's the rectangle. For my other one, I'm going to hit the space bar. Just kind of always go back to my selection tool so I can't accidentally draw something else that I didn't want to. I'm going to push pull this, right? So I'll click the push pull. Now I'm just going to line up my drawing a little bit. So I want to see the 2D rectangle I drew, and I also want to see the bottom edge of the wood because just like the other time, I'm going to pull it down. I'm not holding control. I'm just pulling it down with the mouse. And once I get it going in the direction I want, I'm going to veer off of it. And I'm going to touch the bottom edge of the wood, and you can see what happened. It knew exactly what to do. It fully cut it out. Okay, so now we have two joints, right? So there's one side of our box has two joints. Now the last thing we want to do, well, let's say the second last thing, we want to also cut a groove in throughout the wood from one end to the other because remember we're going to slip a floor into it. That floor is 3/16 of an inch thick. So what I want to do is I want to draw a rectangle. I'm not going to measure up because I just want this video to be a little shorter than it already is. But I'm going to draw a rectangle here, and okay, my first measurement is the height, and then the second one is going to be the width. I want it to be a 1/4 inch deep, which I guess would be the width, and I want it 3/16 of an inch tall. So 3/16 is my first measurement. Oops, why did that do that? So 3/16 is my first measurement. This thing will error on you sometimes, and it is absolutely annoying. Try one more time. Sometimes it gets weird, and I just have to unselect the tool, I hit the space bar, and then I go for it again. Okay, so it's 1/4. I want to make it 3/16. The dimensions 3/16. All right, it keeps reverting to that. You know, for your drawing guys, that's even fine. I was able to do it before, but this is one of the quirks of the online thing. So if you have to draw a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch slot there for the sake of the drawing, it's fine. When we actually cut it, we'll be at 3/16. It's barely underneath it. All right, so we have a square there, a two-dimensional square. This is at the point where the program stops responding. All right, it wasn't letting me disengage the tool, so now I probably had an online lag. So I got my 2D. I'm good now. So I hit the space bar a few times, and I got my selection tool back. All right, so I have my 2D rectangle. I'm going to push it, push pull tool. All right, and again, I want to make sure I get all the way to the end. So I'm going to line it up. I could see this. I'll turn it a little bit. this line right here, that's where I want to go to. So I can still see my 2D rectangle. So I'm going to grab it. I'm going to pull it right through. And I'm going to end on this line right here. Boom. There we go. Is that it? Did we get it? All right. Left a little remnant. We can delete that. In fact, you guys, it's good that you can actually see I do this. So we got a little remnant. We're going to click on the plane, on the little surface of it. Hit delete. It leaves the line. Whoops. Careful. You don't want to delete any planes that you want to keep. Change your view so you can see what you're doing. We want to get rid of the line. Oops. Sometimes you got to be very careful when you select it. If you zoom in a lot, it makes it easier to select things. We want to get rid of that line. I want to get rid of this line. Make sure it's the line that you want to get rid of actually lights up. You don't want to accidentally light up the whole surface here and hit delete, and then you get rid of it. You don't want to do that. So you got to make sure that you're actually clicking on the right thing you want to get rid of. Get rid of that line. Okay, so this side is, if I wasn't going to do anything ornate, this side would essentially be done, right? We have our joints and we have our slot for the floor to go in. But I want to show you guys one last thing, how to make this ornate. Ornate means fancy. I'm going to hit my shift key. I'm going to press the thumb wheel of the mouse, just kind of drag my view a little different. So if you're familiar with when we did our bases, some of you did what's called an OG edge. It's OGEE, right? OG edge. And it's basically a concave scallop on the edge of, on one of the edges of the wood. So we could do that with a circle, right? So we'll start with, let's say that's what you wanted to do. I want you guys to think of a way you can make yours fancy. Of course, we're gonna have certain things similar. There's only so many things you could do, but so feel free to do this. Feel free to do a bevel where you draw like a line or something, whatever. You guys, try to be creative. I'm gonna do an OG edge on here, so I'm gonna use this point right here. I selected the circle tool. I'm not even measuring this. I'm just, for the sake of cutting something out here, I'm just going to eyeball a circle. I'll just leave it like that. You can see what it did. I'm going to hit the space bar again because I want my selection tool. You always want to revert back to your selection tool after you draw something, because otherwise the drawing tool is still active. And if I click somewhere else, I'm going to be putting a second circle somewhere. So I just drew a circle on this. I'm going to delete most of it. I only want this quarter of the circle right here, this quarter slice. So I'm going to click on the, just drop the mic. I'm going to click on the surface of the circle here that I don't want. I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to click on the line of the circle that I don't want. I'm going to hit delete. Now you see what Sketchup does is it knows that there's natural boundaries, that this circle is intersecting another shape. So it treats the edges of the shape it intersects as boundaries for the circle as well. That's kind of useful, because that way I could just click on the part of the circle I don't want. You can see the part I don't want lights up without lighting up the part that I do want. I'm just going to hit delete, and there we go. So I'm going to push this right through with the push-pull. Again, get your view so you can see the other ends, because I want to stop at the end. So let me grab this. I'm going to push-pull it. I'm going to go right to here, and it knew what to do. Boom. Look at how fancy that looks, right? So that's one side. Okay, and in the next video, we'll see how to make this what's called a component. We don't have to draw it all over again. Obviously, the other side is going to be the exact same thing, so we'll copy this side. We'll make it a component, and we'll copy it. Okay, so let me post this, and I'll make a new video for the next one.